Hey everybody, welcome to ChillCraft. We're going to continue the money making series here with part 1 of leatherworking. Now, what I notice is that when it comes to money making, the most important thing is really creating opportunity. And in this guide, one of the differences you'll see is that I'm not necessarily focused on getting from level 1 to 300 as quickly as possible with leatherworking. What I'm trying to actually do is make a profit as I work through leatherworking. So for apprentice leatherworking, you need 9 copper and you need to be level 5. And the total mats that you actually need are 245 light leather and 100 coarse thread. Now you don't really have to worry about thread because thread can be sold right next to the leatherworking trainer. There's usually a supplier. I'm going to be referencing this from a horde perspective, so I'm going to be mostly in Thunder Bluff. Now the reason I choose Thunder Bluff, I'll talk about this in the later sections, but there's usually one trainer on each faction that's a little bit more skilled than the other when it comes to the expert level, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So for the first step, I'm going to be using light leather and light armor kits, and this is from levels 1 through 45. Now the reason I say light leather is because you're going to get a lot of these ruined leather scraps. You need to kind of piece these things together to create individual leather pieces. So my goal is I'm going to gather as much ruined leather scraps as possible and use that to build out light leather. And for everything else, I'm going to go ahead and build light armor kits. Now, a stack of light armor kits is equal to 3 silver, which is the same price that you would get vendoring individual stacks of light leather. So you're not necessarily making a profit here on the first step, but you're coming out at neutral, which is completely fine. So for step 2, we're going to start crafting the embossed leather vest. Now you're going to do this from levels 45 to 70. And the requirements here are 200 light leather, 100 coarse thread. So the cost to make the embossed leather vest is going to set you back at 1 silver and 65 copper each. You can sell this directly to the vendor for 1 silver or 92 copper, which will give you a profit of 36 copper. Considering all the levels that we're going to be working at, you're going to get a total profit of 9 silver. It doesn't sound like a lot, but in the immediate time, it's enough where there's actual value for this. If you want to make more profit, this item is great because it's a really good flow item that will pair really well with enchanting. So if you want to disenchant this and sell the enchanting items for more, that's also an option that you have to do, or either put this out on the auction house. So once you hit level 70, you're going to go back to the trainer and learn Journeyman Leatherworking. This is going to set you back 4 silver and 50 copper, and you need to be at least level 10, and at the minimum have a leatherworking skill of 50. So for this phase, we're going to need 175 light leather, 15 medium hides, 15 salts. Salts are light coarse threads where they're available at the vendor, 240 medium leather, 20 gray dye, 20 fine threads. The third item we're going to focus on is the embossed leather cloak. So we're going to be doing this from level 70 to level 90. Now the requirements for these levels are you're going to need 100 light leather and 40 coarse thread. So the cost to make an embossed leather cloak is 93 copper. And we can sell this for 1 silver and 12 copper, and making us a total profit of 19 copper per cloak. So the total profit for these 20 levels is 3 silver and 80 copper.
So for levels 90 to 105, we're going to make the embossed leather gloves. So the mats we need for this are 45 light leather and 30 coarse thread. Our total cost to make 1 embossed leather gloves is 65 copper. We can vendor this for 71 copper for a total of 90 copper. Now that isn't a lot, so another option that you can make at this level are the fine leather boots. Now the only caveat for these are a world drop recipes, so you might have to find this on the auction house or maybe you get lucky. But the actual profit here is pretty amazing. It's 1 silver and 18 copper. You only need 7 light leather, 2 coarse thread, and you can vendor this for 2 silver and 43 copper. So it makes a lot of sense if you can get your hands on this recipe.
Now, step 5, it's going to run you from levels 105 to 120. Now, this is our first time that we're going to be focusing on hides. Now, hides are not as common as leather. Now, my advice to everybody with hide is I'm going to specify you need at least 15 hide for this step, but the more hides you have, the actual better it is. And during this phase, if you have more than 15 hide, go ahead and do them all as much as possible. So for step 5, we're going to work on the cured medium hide, and we have a requirement of 15 medium hides and 15 salts. Now, this will cost you 1 silver and 90 copper each, but for right now, hold this in your bank. Now, the 6th step that we want to focus on is the dark leather pants. Now, we're going to be doing this from levels 120 to 140. And our requirement is that we have 240 medium leather, 20 gray dye, and 20 fine thread. Now the dye and the thread, you're going to get it from the same place that you got the coarse threads and the salts at the supplier. The cost for this item is 10 silver and 11 copper. Now this will vendor for 10 silver and 89 copper, giving us a profit of 78 copper. For the 20 levels that we're going to be working on these pants, you're going to net profit of 15 silver and 60 copper. Now, the key point is that this is one of those items that, like we talked about earlier, it's a green item. We can vendor this, but I would actually recommend holding off for enchanting purposes or using this on the auction house at a later phase. Now, these aren't like BIS pants, but at the same time, these are really good pants. They have 8 agility. Rogues will love this. Druids will love this. Even hunters and shamans will love this item. We'll talk more about this in an upcoming auction house guide. So the next level that we're going to be working on this guide is the expert leatherworking. Now the requirement is that you need 45 silver, which is substantial. You need to be level 20, and you need to have leatherworking up to level 125. Requirements of items you're going to need for this level is 60 medium leather, 55 fine thread, 10 heavy hide, 30 salt, 450 heavy leather, 20 black dye, and 40 silken thread. So the item that we're going to be focusing on is, this is our breadwinner here, and this is why I said, build as many medium hides as possible. These are our HIJIMAN'S shoulders. Now, this will take us from 140 to 155, but if you have more hides, just continue building these out. The requirements that we have for this level is 15 cured medium hides, 60 medium leathers, and 15 fine threads. Now, the cost to make this is 5 silver and 5 copper. Now, I can vendor this for 11 silver and 99 copper. And the profit is 6 silver and 94 copper each. So for 15 levels, our total profit is 1 gold, 4 silver, and 10 copper. Now this is a killing right here. I only put 15 medium hides because they are more rare, but if you can get more, just make these as much as possible. These will sell well on the auction house, but even if you vendor these for 6 silver, for almost 7 silver each, you're gonna make a lot of money. So I would level these until basically you can, the skill turns green or even gray. We're gonna use the strategy for the next item, which is step 8, cured heavy hide. So this is from 155 to 165, but like the previous requirement, if you have more heavy hides, continue making as many heavy hides as possible. So the requirement for this level is 10 heavy hides and 30 salt. Now the cost is going to be 3 silver and 35 copper, but like previously, we're going to hold on to our heavy hides. So the 9th step is the HIJIMAN'S cloak, and this is going to take us from levels 165 to 175. The requirements here are 50 heavy leathers, and 20 fine threads. The cost to make a hillman's cloak is going to be at 8 silver and 40 copper. We can vendor this for 10 silver and 27 copper, giving us a profit of 1 silver and 87 copper. And in those 10 levels, we're going to make 18 silver and 70 copper. It isn't as much as the shoulders, but you know, what can you do? The next item is the barbaric shoulders, and this is going to take us from levels 175 to 185. The requirements for this level is the 80 heavy leather, 10 cured heavy hide, and 20 fine thread. The cost to make one of these shoulders are 17 silver and 15 copper. We can vendor this for 26 silver and 9 copper, giving us a profit of 8 silver and 94 copper, and in these 10 levels, giving us a total profit of 89 silver and 40 copper. So this last level of expert leatherworking is a bit tricky. These are the dusky bracers. These are supposed to take us from 185 to 205. And the reason that I am saying this is a little bit tricky is because these are the one item that we actually get a negative loss when it comes to vendoring. I think if you actually consider selling these on the auction house or giving these to an alt class, you're actually going to get a lot more value out of these. But we'll go through the math in a second. So the requirements for the dusky bracers are 320 heavy leather. We need 20 black dye and 40 silken thread. The cost for one of these items is expensive. It's going to be 42 silver each. We'll vendor this at 21 silver and 46 copper. So we have actual loss of 20 silver and 54 copper, and a total net loss of 4 gold, 10 silver, and 80 copper.
So the other option here that I would consider is if you have a lot of leftover heavy hide and you don't want to use the auction house, you can craft the guardian gloves at level 190. So the requirements are 60 thick leather, 15 cured heavy hide, 15 silken thread. The cost to craft one of the guardian gloves is going to set you at 13 silver and 50 copper. We can vendor them for 13 silver and 74 copper for a profit of 24 copper and a total profit of 3 silver and 60 copper. So up until this point, you should have been able to reach at least level 205 and make a profit of close to 5 gold, depending on which item you chose to level for the last part. While this is not enough money to necessarily get you a mount at level 40, it's a nice addition, and there's a couple items here that we'll talk about in the next guide, where if you craft these, people will buy them at specific levels for twinking, and they're just a low level biz item that has value all the way until endgame. So the next level is Artisan Leatherworking. This requires level 35, at least 200 leatherworking and 5 silver. Now, I want to preface this next part by saying that there's another option for this whole track getting to level 300, which is the Artisan Leatherworking track. That's a little bit different than what I'm going to be recommending here. So you might want to consider this if you're trying to be as efficient as possible and you already know what sort of Artisan Leatherworking track you're going to specialize in. There's 3 different ones that you can choose, and all of them really have exclusive recipes. There's a lot of considerations you actually have to make, and each one ranges from what class you're playing to what makes the most gold, or maybe what your guild needs. We're going to go ahead and cover those in another video because there's a whole nother thought process to that we want to make sure we go over. Another thing to think about with the Artisan Leatherworking specialty tracks is that they're both time intensive and money intensive. The mats are hard to come by. You might have to do some grinding, or you might have to plan out the way that you're leveling up so that you grind turtles and hinterlands for a little bit before. And because of this, I want to cover this in more detail in the second part of my leatherworking guide. So when it comes to Artisan Leatherworking, the requirements we need to be able to go through this whole process until level 300 is 500 thick leather, 160 silken thread, 320 rugged leather, 40 black dye, and 40 rune thread. So the 12th item you're going to want to craft is the NIGHTSCAPE headband. Now we're going to be doing this from leatherworking levels 205 to 235. The requirements that you need for these levels are 150 thick leather and 60 silken thread. The cost is going to set you back 25 silver, but you're going to be able to vendor this for 44 silver and 95 copper, making a nice profit of 19 silver and 95 copper per item. So for these 30 levels, you're going to make a total profit of 5 gold, 98 silver, and 50 copper. The next item that you're going to want to craft are the NIGHTSCAPE pants. Now these are going to run you from levels 235 to 260 leatherworking. The requirements are 350 thick leather and 100 silken thread. The cost is 62 silver. We can vendor this for 87 silver and 8 copper, giving us a profit of 25 silver and 8 copper, for a total profit of 6 gold and 27 silver. So the NIGHTSCAPE pants are actually one of the first items that I'm going to flag. It's going to be in my AFK guide, but this is an item where you're making 25 silver per item, and if you just buy a huge amount of thick leather, or you have people sending it to you, as well as silk and thread, you're gonna be able to just put yourself to craft and come back in an hour, and you're gonna have a nice chunk of change. So we'll talk about this in a later guide as well. So the next item we're going to craft is the Wicked Leather Gauntlets. We're going to craft this from levels 260 to 280. Our requirements are 80 rugged leather, 20 black dye, and 20 rune thread. The cost is 1 gold and 50 cents to make this, and we only vendor this for 68 silver and 72 copper. So we have a loss of 36 silver and 28 copper, for a total loss of these 20 levels of 7 gold and 25 silver and 60 copper. So this situation is very similar to the Dusky Bracers. The stats are great, so they should sell well on the auction house. The benefit of crafting these is we don't need to search around for specific items from alchemy or other professions. These items are really good for the 49 twink bracket. Now, the other option that you can go with here is one that I'll recommend in the next guide for the artisan specific paths. There's not a lot of options in these levels if you're not going with the artisan recipes outside of the Wicked set. So the last item we're going to be crafting to get us all the way to 300 is the Wicked Leather Headband. Now the requirements for this level is 240 rugged leather, 20 black dye, and 20 rune thread. The cost to make one Wicked Leather Headband is 1 gold and 20 silver. We can vendor this for 1 gold, 31 silver, and 54 copper, giving us a profit of 11 silver and 54 copper, making us a total profit of 2 gold, 30 silver, and 80 copper. Nice, so we've actually hit 300, we're finally here. The artisan level is actually pretty straightforward, unless you're actually speccing into the specialty tracks, and it will net you about 15 gold depending on how well you sell the Wicked Leather Gauntlets. Hopefully this leatherworking guide has been helpful, and it shows you which recipes to focus on and not spend money, just find every recipe you can. In my next guide, I'm going to be going through the artisan specialty tracks and which one I think is the best one, which one I'm taking, and also recipes that I believe are good money makers across all different levels. So, whether it's light leather, whether it's medium leather, thick leather, heavy leather, rugged leather, which item you want to focus on crafting and using to actually either dominate the market or sell in trade chat. Thank you guys for checking out this video. Let me know what your thoughts are.